What was your "this person is on another level of stupid" moment? I locked my purse with my keys and cell phone in my apartment. I went to the office to ask maintenance to let me in. The woman at the desk said she would call maintenance and asked for a phone number they could reach me at. I said there wasn't one because my cell phone was locked in my apartment. She insisted she needed a number. I said I could give her the number but that I wouldn't be able to answer if they called. She suggested I get my phone out of my apartment so that I could answer when they called. I rolled my eyes at her and said if I could get in my apartment to get my cell phone I wouldn't need maintenance to let me in. She never did understand me. But maintenance did show up 10 minutes later. Reminds me of the time my cell phone completely died, wouldn't power on even if I charged it, so I called Apple support. Guy asked what's wrong with my phone. I told him it won't turn on. He asks me to power it on so we could troubleshoot. I tell him it won't turn on. He sighs and tells me he won't be able to diagnose the problem if I won't cooperate and power on my phone for him. I got a concussion a while back. A friend of mine told me not to come close because it might be contagious. They weren't kidding. A girl in my school had gotten about 3 concussions within a year, and when she hit her head the 4th time, and blacked out for a minute, refused to go to the doctor because last time they said if I got another concussion it could cause brain damage, so I'm not going to let them give me another one. Ex-flatmate canceled the gas and electricity contract because it was too expensive. Wondered why we had no more electricity nor gas. She thought we paid €90 a month to get a hotline 24/7 in case of problem. I was friends with a couple who only had enough money to pay either the cable bill or the electricity. They paid the cable. A couple days later the power was turned off. I had to explain to a girl why you couldn't grow your hair down in front of your face and just cut out eye holes. Even explaining it her she couldn't grasp it, and brushed me off as being too smart. I worked at a pet store in college. This customer asked me which food would make his pit bull swole. I suggested a high-protein food with a good amount of exercise but advised that a lot of it was determined by the dog's genetics. He asked me if we sold genetics. Rescued a coworker on the side of the road with a flat tire, waiting for the tow truck. I pointed out the nail at the top of their tire. They scoffed and looked at me like I was the stupidest person in the world and exclaimed, "That's not true because it's flat at the bottom." I just walked away and never brought it up again. I was friends with a guy who believed those fake Apple adverts like, "Apple Wave microwave your phone for instant battery charge." I was so dumbfounded that he actually fell for it. When I saw him the week after, and he had a new phone, it all clicked for me. At least he's got the money to fund his idiocy. This was my first experience in retail where I learned what many customers would be like. Seasons were changing, so we put a lot of shirts we had to get rid of in the front and made them 50% off. I was working the register when a woman came up to buy her things. I rang her up and could see a look on her face like something was wrong. That's when the following happened. "Lady, why is this so much?" Me, "Pardon me? Lady, this should only be $10, not $20. I thought that maybe her item was on sale, so I asked if she could point out the sign because I wasn't aware of it. It was a small store, and we didn't have to walk anywhere. "Lady, this sign here." Me, "This sign says that all shirts are 50% off." Lady, "Yes, so why is this full price?" Me, "This is a hat." My wife's cousin and her husband fell on self-induced hard times and needed a place to stay for a bit. We set up a queen-sized air mattress in the living room for them. For 3 weeks I woke up to go to work and every morning saw them sleeping on it sideways with their legs hanging off the edge. Then one day she asked me to buy her a bigger air mattress because this one was hard on their backs. I told her to turn her body. The fucking thing even has a built-in pillow on one end. Her response was that then they couldn't see the TV. Then fucking turn the air mattress to face the TV. That's the story of how I became an a-hole to the trailer trash side of the family. I was once asked how it felt to come to the US as a refugee. I'm from Germany. She then looked rather surprised when I told her that Hitler has been dead for 75 years and that Germany is one of the more liberal countries in the world these days. She full-on thought I fled Nazi Germany. I worked at a meat desk for a summer job, and a woman came in and asked if we had any meat without spices or sauces. She then proceeded to tell us that the doctor had said that her dogs got sick because she kept feeding them pizza and they couldn't handle the spices. She then said, "Oh, but they love pizza so much, I feel bad for them. I'm probably still gonna feed them pizza." I work for Parks Canada in Yoho National Park. I have been asked the question, seriously, "Where do you keep the animals at night?" twice in my career. To this day I still find great joy imagining what they thought was going on each night as we collected every large animal in the parks. Spent 7 years working for TSA. Had a pretty sweet detail where I would assist passengers who did not have ID or assist TSA agents if they had questions about the validity of the given ID. I get a call on the radio asking for assistance in verifying an ID. I come over and ask what the issue is. Agent hands me a driver's license and says, "Can't accept this Canadian ID." Hearing this, I assume it's expired or the wrong name. I take a look and see that it is an Alaskan driver's license. I quickly approve the passenger and send them on their way. I then spend 10 minutes explaining that A. Canadian DLs are acceptable according to TSA regulations, and B. Alaska has never been a Canadian territory. This coworker has a master's degree in mathematics and served 25 years in the U.S. Air Force. It's dumbfounding how people can be so high-functioning in some areas and leave you bewildered as to how they even manage to survive to adulthood in others. Knew a girl in middle school that didn't understand the concept of perspective. She also thought north was whichever direction you were facing at the time. Back when the Fukushima nuclear power plant disaster happened, we were discussing how the reactor had failed in a science class. 5 minutes into the conversation, a girl piped up and said, "I don't see what the big deal is. Why can't we just regrow it?" She dead-ass thought a nuclear power plant was a plant. Summer camp counselor made all the kids on a school bus keep the windows up on a hot day because they could feel the air conditioning coming from the front of the bus. It was so hot, and I, maybe 10 years old at the time, had to explain to the 40-year-old counselor that the air conditioning they were feeling was the wind coming in through the bus driver's open window. She still didn't believe me. I begged her to ask the bus driver to confirm the bus did not have air conditioning, but she didn't want to bother him while he was driving. It was like a 1-hour bus trip. She finally got hot enough and asked the bus driver if the bus had air conditioning, and he jokingly said, "The bus only has air conditioning when the windows are down and the wheels are turning." She then looked back at me and said, "See? I told you the bus had air conditioning," and proceeded to force us to keep the windows up. The time a friend told me how much he hates potatoes while eating French fries, and I literally blew his mind by telling him French fries are potatoes. Not me, but a friend worked in a call center for a CC company in the disputes department. The number one item people called to say they never purchased: interest charge. A old coworker was telling me that there's people out there that think Alaska is an island. I laughed in disbelief, but another coworker overheard and was flabbergasted. "What? It's not. But it's always drawn off to the side with Hawaii?" Point made. I teach high school English. I was working with a small 9th grade group and found out all 4 of them thought Alaska was an island. They were not kidding. I grabbed a globe to show them. One asks, "But how recent is that map?" I laughed really hard but discovered again that it was not a joke. "How much is a $50 worth?" She was the newest teller my boss hired. Will never forget that moment. Me, when I was a kid, I had a real old transistor radio, asked my parents for a newer radio, so I could receive and listen to newer music. My sister asked if the Eiffel Tower was in Paris or France, and couldn't understand how it could be in both. This happened when she was like 14. She's 26 now. She went on to graduate from college and graduated top of her class. A friend didn't have coins for a vending machine but did have $1. She folded up the dollar and forced it into the coin slot, and then did not understand why she did not get her item. Classmate was convinced that winning the lottery is 50% chance, because you either win it or not. In last year of high school, there was a girl in my high school who forced the teacher to pause a documentary about people living in mud huts in Africa because she was upset that they were showing us fictional movies in a history class. It took everyone else in the room to convince her that people actually live like that in some places. Wealthy area living for ya. I'm an identical twin, and have been asked all manner of utterly ridiculous questions about it throughout my life. But I think the stupidest was when a girl once asked me, "Do you ever get yourselves mixed up with each other?" I responded, "Are you asking me if I ever sometimes think I'm my brother?" She replied, "Yeah, No, I don't. I had to explain to a woman that apples did not contain any gluten, meat, or dairy ingredients. How can one think apples contain dairy? She thought gluten was found in every major grain, and that apples were a grain because they have seeds. In high school, I met a boy who asked me for a hygienic cloth because he thought he had a period. Actually, he only sat on a melted popsicle. At the beginning of the pandemic, a friend freaked out to hear that there was a COVID case an hour away, meaning someone an hour's drive away had been diagnosed. She thought she should get in her car and drive the other direction to keep ahead of it because she thought COVID, the disease, was approaching like a wave of zombies and was an hour from reaching her. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.